Hola, audiencia y bienvenidos. Cinema Club. Welcome. I am today's host. I am also joined by, I'm Jason Eccles, by the way. I'm also joined by Steve Dez, JP Saruno, El Dondino, and Naomi. So we want to welcome you guys today. Today we're going to talk about the movie Mank, which is currently streaming on Netflix. I believe it's a Netflix film, right? It's it's an interesting movie. I picked it because it talks about and it chronicles one of my favorite movies of all time for a very long time, Citizen Kane. And it's about Mank is Herman J. Mankiewicz, the guy who actually wrote Citizen Kane. Even though he never really got the credit for it, like he never got like above the line or below the line or whatever that is in Hollywood. He's never truly acknowledged for it, even though he did win an Oscar. So it's kind of a confusing thing. Um, but the movie was shut down in a lot of different ways, the Citizen Kane, that is, because of the times and the political nature of it and who it was in reference to. So I picked it. Um, let's just go straight into what you guys' first impressions were. Let's start with Dino. What was your first impressions of this movie, Mank?
I feel like there should be a disclaimer, or when you're about to click it on Netflix, that should pop up and say, "Go watch Citizen Kane first."
Hmm.
I think out of all the movies we've seen, I just I just wasn't entertained. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I just wasn't entertained. And I have a decent TV. It's 4K, but it was super dark. And I was like changing my settings. That's in black and white. I get it. Citizen Kane is in black and white. But I was struggling. I was struggling all through the first half, trying to figure out. I would even sometimes not recognize Mank. I just wouldn't recognize him because it was dark. It was black and white. Everyone's smoking cigarettes, so there's smoke. I'm just like until he like spoke. It was yeah. It was, I fought the movie. I fought the movie trying to understand and recognize characters because it's black and white, and I couldn't recognize who was who unless it was a close up of them. And yeah, so I didn't really enjoy this movie. There are things I really liked from it, but as a whole, I just couldn't enjoy it. And I was even trying to remember, like, oh my god, what happened in Citizen Kane? Oh my god, like that's right. And like I know Citizen Kane, and I got some of the most of the references, but at the same time, I'm like, I should have probably watched that beforehand just to have a refresher, because they were definitely dropping some like clues and things like, oh, you know this thing that came from here. So yeah, I thought the acting. I mean, the acting was so great. I didn't recognize people from one scene to another. Uh, yeah, so that's my first impression. I struggled with it.
That's
Um,
an amazing first impression. Like your impression was it was too dark. Like
and not
like
like dark comedy or anything. Like I
no,
just
like visually,
yeah.
you should have just turned the lightness up. Like you should change the setting on your television.
Saturation.
I
Like
did. I
that was
put
the
it
first
on
step of watching a black and white movie.
brightest. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I had, I mean, they talk about the talkies, so I had subtitles on to try and follow even more. And and to my credit, I will say I think this is a little lazy. They're trying to be all cute because they would have like interior, and it would have the little typewriter sound, and it would give like interior house blah 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 year, or exterior house blah blah blah, and then it would say flashback. And they did that because they did it all in black and white, and no one could tell what time it was or where you were. So it was the only way to let the audience know what the hell was going on, that they had to throw that in and try to be cute. Anyway, watch Mank, But first go watch Citizen Kane, then watch a documentary about the making of Citizen Kane, then go watch Mank, and you might understand and enjoy it more.
Very good. Yes, there are a lot of resources that you can look at to watch this movie. Naomi, what was your impression? First impression?
I have a love and hate relationship with this movie. The storyline, I didn't get it. I was lost. I would doze off and start doing something else. So it's not my cup of tea. And that's because it's not my cup of tea. Why I love it? I love it because of the fashion. I mean, there was more than that. There was the Art Deco. There was the Art Nouveau, the transitional of the frames, that whole typewriter thing. I dig that, because then I'm like, hey, this was in this era. Okay, now I get it. I've never seen Citizen Kane. Didn't know who Mankiewicz was. All I know is that the storyline leads of a rich storyteller in Hollywood. And that seems like every story in LA so far for me. So I love this movie because of the textures that come out in the film. I don't know. I love it. It's a good film in one way and a bad film in another. Those are my initial thoughts.
Very good. Steve, why don't you tell us your first impressions of the film?
I'm actually glad that I didn't burst because I'm glad that I got a perspective from everybody. But to me, my initial thoughts was like, oh, here we go. Let's strap ourselves to this journey that we're gonna take because of Jason. And say I concur with Dino, man. Like first, I never seen Citizen Kane, and I don't know if I actually want to watch Citizen Kane, to be honest with you. But this particular movie, like the same thing that happened with Naomi, like I dozed a lot. Like there were certain moments of the film that captivated me that I was like, okay, this is valuable here. But the thing about it, there's so many mixed feelings that I have with this movie, because first it's an old Hollywood movie. And the biggest gripe I have with old Hollywood movies is the whole like just whitewashing of the masses. It's like they're in control, they're in power, they do everything. Our people are not represented in any way, shape, or form, not even as like the extras or something. And it's just like I feel completely disconnected. The other thing is that me and JP actually met each other in college, and we used to take, I don't know if you used to take it, but I know I did take a class with Stu. May he rest in peace, Stu Levin, yeah. And yeah, Stu Levin. And we used to watch like a lot of old films. And the majority of the time, I'm talking like 95% of the time, the majority of the people will be sleeping in that class because these old Hollywood films, that's what it causes. And when you don't see yourself represented, when you don't get fully the storyline, you have to like watch a lot to kind of like understand what the heck is going on. It disconnects you. And especially in this newer generation that we live, like we need a little bit more. Like this movie, to me, at least to me, it felt, especially because it's a 2020 film, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It just came out.
Yeah, so it being a 2020 film, this felt more like old Hollywood porn for boomers that are just wishing for that era to be back again. That's what it felt to me. Like straight up, like
it's not our audience, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
for our intended audience.
Yeah, like I don't think
I can't believe that Steve and I agree so much. It's like the first time that Steve and I are kind of on the same page.
Yeah, like while watching the film, I'm like, I can see why Jason picked it and why he would like it. But for me and for a lot of people in my community, we will watch this and be like, why are you wasting your time? So
we don't know yet if Jason fully liked it yet. He hasn't given his first impression yet.
That's true. But I think out of everybody today, I think he has to be the person that liked it the most, at least, unless JP the first, but we'll see. That's my initial thoughts.
We'll find out.
Let's find out. I'm anxious to see what me and JP thought of the film. JP, what did you think? What was your first impression?
Yeah, the movie did almost succeeded and almost perfected what old Hollywood is.
Yeah.
Like the only problem that I have is like some of the visuals you could tell that this was shot, you know, probably in 4K and more high resolution, and in post they try to make it look old. But the sound, whoever did sound, they exceeded in that. Like the whole, like the music and just the people talking, it sounds like an old picture. You know, the thing is, narrative wise, I'm not gonna lie, I was also really lost in the film, and I think a part of that is that it seemed very unfocused. Like it did not know what it wanted to talk about. I feel like this movie is literally just like basically a history textbook brought to life, just full whatever is right there on the paper. We're gonna put on film. Because go ahead.
Real quick, my bad for interjecting. But do you think this film needed a narrator?
Did it have a narrator?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think it did either. No, I don't think it needed one. Even the typewriter thing, I feel like that was enough to like what was going on, is because I think it did help like when and where we were at the film. But like because there's so many elements in the movie that I kind of wished they touched upon more, but never really went anywhere. Like Mankiewicz's alcoholism,
right.
the time, like how like his time of like, oh, this has to be done within 60 days. And also even the whole political atmosphere of the day, which was probably the only thing in the film that they actually dedicated more than enough time to, because that was the one that actually kind of stuck with me. It was like, oh, okay, like I get why Mankiewicz has a very hostile relationship with MGM because of his political beliefs and what he believes should be an entertainer's place versus what we should present as factor news to people, right? Like we shouldn't muddy those lines, but it also just came and went. So I wish that it had somewhere to focus on, because I don't think that they had enough time to show us like, oh, the pressures of finishing this in 60 days, and also how serious his alcohol problem was. It also kind of came as a surprise to me at the end. Spoiler, dude dies because he's an alcoholic. I didn't get that at all during the whole film. It's like, oh, well, he drinks, but it doesn't seem like it's destroying his life or really destroying the people in his life. Sure, they're mad and upset with him, but I wish that the stakes were a little bit higher and the movie was a bit more focused on like what its message was, because the only real message I got was it's the political stuff, and that was about it. Other than that, like Dino was right. If you know Citizen Kane, you'll probably enjoy the movie more, because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the stuff I was like, damn, someone needs to do their history first to actually enjoy this movie thoroughly, and I'm not that person. I didn't know half of the history of it, and even narrative wise, I wasn't. I guess I could say I was not committed. Like no one in the picture made me committed to them. Even a few characters that seemed to come out of nowhere, like Shelley, the cinematographer, the extra who showed up a few times, and even the big wigs like Louis Mayer, and also I think either his son or someone young who was also second to him. Like the secondary characters, I feel like also like were shelved. Like like the movie's right, the title's right. It's about Bank, and we get to know about him, but there's not much about him other than okay, he's straight up he's a very somewhat self-righteous artist, somewhat of an egotistical artist, but that's an artist in general. But like I was kind of hoping to get more, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and it didn't feel focused, so I did not know what to follow or get out of the film. That's a long first impression.
Well, that is a pretty interesting first impression. Thank you for sharing that with us, JP. You, I think you nailed a lot of stuff, man. I won't go into everything that I thought straight up, because I think you put a lot of it out there. I will say this, though. I do agree that this movie can be a lot more enjoyable if you know where it's coming from, because it's about a very specific piece of Hollywood history. You know, and it's coming down the pipeline at a very specific time in history too. It's like, you know, the mid to late 30s, early 40s, you know, when this thing is made. So you sort of have to understand a few of the Hollywood references, like, you know, how much trouble The Wizard of Oz was at that time to make, and it was costing all this money, and nobody knew what they were about to see. It was a color movie, so they keep referencing that, and they're like, oh, they're spending all this money on this junk film, Wizard of Oz. It's not going to amount to anything. And then like there's another movie called RKO 2, I think it's the RKO 281. It was starring Levi Schreiber as Orson Welles, which I don't want to say it's a better film, but it's a better film at breaking down what was going on with trying to get that movie made. This is less about the making of Citizen Kane directly and more about like Mankiewicz making Citizen Kane, like his direct contribution to that film. I will say the audio, I was very impressed with the audio of this movie. Like I normally don't even notice the audio of a film, but one of two things I kept thinking about this movie. Either they put a filter on the audio to make it sound like you were in an old theater when you watched it. And I ended up watching this movie half on my iPad, half on the TV. And the audio was there for both of them. So either they put a filter on it to make it sound like you were sitting in an old theater and you were getting that kind of like, you know, old movie kind of audio, or they filmed it with old audio equipment to get that sound. But it was impressive. It was super dope. I did to piggyback off of what Dina was saying with changing the settings. I actually did have to change the light setting on the second time I watched the movie. The second time I'm like, it's so dark, what's going on? So I had to change the setting to make it brighter to get, you know, the desired effect, which it's actually kind of normal with black and white movies sometimes because of the way they're filmed. You're gonna have to adjust your TV anyhow. My impression of the movie is actually I can see how a lot of people might think this is a dull film, especially if you don't know it, because not only are like we not represented in the film, but
Totally.
like our ideas really aren't represented in the film. You know what I mean? Because it's such an old take on what was going on back then. You know what I mean? And if you don't understand that world, then in no way, shape, or form will you feel represented or that you can understand this film. But from a technical film point, the movie is fantastic, technically.
Wardrobe wise too.
Yeah, like the costume, wardrobe, setting. For not one second did I believe I was not in 1930s Hollywood. Even like when they drive out to Victorville and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, oh man, like has to be how it looks.
They
you know?
grabbed the essence of that era very well in this film. I agree.
Yeah,
I just would like the entire time I was watching the movie, I was like, I wish there could be a movie like film noir style, but our people are represented, you know, like we get to play parts. Like that would be hella epic. I haven't seen a movie.
I want to see it now. I've never considered it.
Similar to La Familia. La Familia, have you guys heard of that movie with young J-Lo?
No.
The old one?
Like, I don't know, like young J-Lo. That's old.
J-Lo was in it? Wasn't it Edward Olmos and all that?
Yeah. That one's also like a good representation of a half cut black noir film, you know what I mean? Because not all full, it's like it's half, but you know, it still grabs it.
With that said, I will say that I don't mind watching movies where I'm not represented. A lot of times I actually enjoy it because I get to see a perspective from the other side that doesn't include me, and they don't have me in mind. They're not thinking about me. So I just get to see how the other side lives or how they're thinking. And I'm totally okay with that. If I want to see something where I'm represented, I'll watch something where I'm represented. But I think those are all valid points. So let's talk about the performances of this movie, because I think there might be some Oscar considerations in this thing. Personally, well, you know what? Before we do that, like there are some things about the narration that you guys didn't, or the narrative that you guys thought were confusing. Who thought that the narrative was confusing or found it hard to follow or boring to follow, or it was constructed poorly? I know JP had a feeling about it.
Yeah. I a little of all of that at one point or another. And I mean, I've seen Citizen Kane a couple times, and I know some of the backstory and all that. But I was like, there was the car accident. Who was the guy driving? Was that important? They were talking about the letter that flows off. Then that's how he gets in the accident. Okay, I get that. Then I'm like, he has a brother. Then I can recognize who the brother is unless he says, "Oh, I'm your brother." You know, like then the guy who has Parkinson, I couldn't follow all these characters. And maybe that was just me. Maybe that for me, not only is it the noticing, but sometimes to me all white people sound the same. I guess sometimes I can.
I agree.
Even though I'm really good picking out accents, English accents of foreigners. So I'm pretty good at being like, oh, they're from Brazil speaking in English, or oh, they're from Spain speaking in English. You know, like I'm really
doesn't
good.
have an accent, so they're probably embodying they're embodying SoCal people, so they don't have an accent. So it was I agree.
So that was me. So I don't know how other people, and I knew a lot of the backstory, and I still just was very narrative wise, just like I just gotta follow. Come on, where's that typewriter? I haven't seen the typewriter in a while. I needed to come up and let me know what year we're in.
I didn't have problems with the narrative. I was a little confused only with like the use of flashbacks. I think maybe one time I wasn't paying attention when the flashback thing came up, and I was like, "Wait, what? Wait, where are we?" And then when they re-put us back where we were, I'm like, "Oh, that must have been a flashback." And that might just be me like looking away or not paying attention or something. But also, I know what you guys are saying when you say like sometimes the narrative might have been a little confusing, and it really shouldn't have been because they highlighted for us, but somehow it was still just a little bit. Just a little bit it was. Let's talk about the performances, because I think there's a lot to be said about the performances in this movie.
Amanda Seyfried has gone a long ways from showing the weather.
For sure she has. She's come a long ways. And there's something interesting about her performance because in every other movie, in every other depiction of that character, Marion Davies, they always make her like kind of an idiot, ditzy blonde, cold, mean, bitter. And
so she's been embodied by other actors before?
Oh yeah.
She was very famous. Well, that character herself, she was very famous at the time, right?
Yeah, she was a really big deal, and she was kind of like a middle of the road actor, and then she married like the richest man in America, and he built, like this actually happened, he built a theater for her to perform in, like for her grand debut. And it was like an opera house or something, and it completely flopped. It was trash, and they got harangued for it, by the critics. But you could see that in this. It's a movie called RKO 281 that it's a little bit lighter, a little funnier, and it's not black and white, and it kind of goes into like how messy all of their relationships were. There's some other stuff too. Obviously, Citizen Kane talks about it. She's very much a bitter person in Citizen Kane, and they kind of talk about her a little bit more in that movie. And then like William Randolph Hearst is Citizen Kane. He is Citizen Kane technically. And what I didn't know was, and I don't even know if any of this is true. That's the weird part. Like, because they've always depicted all these characters so different. And then this movie is like, no, that's not how it happened at all. Actually, they were all friends, and Hearst invited him over for dinner to tell jokes. And I like, did that happen? Was he friends with Marion Davies? Because he destroys her in Citizen Kane. Like, destroys her. But also that could have been Orson Welles, who kind of did his rewrite of the script. So we don't know. We don't know what the real relationship was. I guess maybe we blame it all on Orson Welles. But your boy, what's his name? Mankiewicz, the Gary Oldman. I feel like he did it again. What you guys think of Gary Oldman's performance? Like, that dude can do anything. Yeah. He's like one of the best living actors.
He really is kind of like he seems like the type he comes off cross as like a Daniel Day-Lewis that you could probably actually have dinner with and not kill yourself over. Because like no, he's really committed to playing his roles. Like he started off as a character actor and just seeing him progress, like getting out of that. The dude can do anything. And it's such a weird thing because like I don't know if it's the screenwriting, but something about, and I'm sure the performances helped, but like you do believe them. Like not only is this film supposed to take place back in old Hollywood, but they're performing like they're in an old Hollywood movie as well. So that was another thing that I could like actually enjoy. Is like, oh, not only is this like it feels like an old Hollywood movie, because there's a lot of old Hollywood films where they try like as long as you put the black and white, that's it. Who cares? But I feel this one really did, like everyone in the film tried really hard to embody that, and I'm sure the writing helped as well, because the writing, oh my god, I got this one guy who has an absolute hard-on for old shit, and I was like, I could see him writing this. It's just so very old, you know, which caught me off guard every time someone said fuck or whatever in the movie. It's like, oh, he said a swear, you know. But yeah, no, I don't think there really was a dull performance, but unfortunately, I do feel that, I feel like everybody did their part and they did their part well. I just, for some reason, the material and the story just wasn't engaging enough. So I feel bad that if anyone thought that the performances was lacking, I don't think it's the actor's fault at all. I actually do believe it's just the material, to be honest.
Well, let me ask you. We'll start with Naomi. Did you have a favorite character or a character you identify with the most?
Well, two of the females, Amanda Seyfried, I believe is her name, and Lily Collins, embodying females from 1930s is difficult. You have to be very, how do you say, matronly, if not. So all this WAP lifestyle that we basically live in is difficult. So I saw a YouTube video of Lily saying that it was for her to study for this character, she had to like look at women from the 1930s, and that was how she was able to embody a female in that for her role. Other than that, she was jumping from another film, which was Emily in Paris. I mean, a series, Netflix series. Emily in Paris.
Is her.
Yeah, and she's really good in that one. So
she's fantastic in that.
Exactly, like she's so good. She's like amazing in it. So her embodying a 1930s lady to a modern chick, that was to me surprising because it's still in 2020. They were both released during the same time, so I'm sure she was filming during the same time. However, Amanda Seyfried, you mentioned that Marianne had been represented as a ditz or someone that, well, in the same interview, they had mentioned that her character was actually a witty person that talked about politics. So Amanda, I believe, portrayed that character very well for someone that I never recognized. So they were both strong females. That's how I saw it. Other than that, I still couldn't relate to or engage very well with the storyline.
You know, just to piggyback off that real quick, there was something interesting about those characters being so strong in this film, opposed to maybe how they've been portrayed in the past, because of how we're kind of becoming more conscious when we make these movies and tell these stories and how we should represent people, you know? Yeah. This movie, just as a side note, we don't really have to talk about it, but just as a side note, this movie actually comes out at a perfect time because one of the main subplots of the movie is the fake news media. It's like, hey, let's just straight up make some propaganda films and we're going to get what we want out of this situation, straight up lies. And Mankiewicz is like, you know, it's against his politics. He goes, I don't want to be a part of a system that is okay with just telling lies to get votes when we have all this incredible power. You know, the television didn't even exist yet.
No.
So like when you make a newsreel, everyone's going to the theater to see your newsreel, and you are destroying like what people, how they understand the world.
The hope people might have, or the way they see the world. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Steve, how about you? Was there a character that you maybe identified with or you liked the most?
I think I identify with at the beginning when they're like at that like little, I don't know if it was like an accounting place, like an office type of situation deal. But when you walk in, you see all these guys in suits, and then you see like a lady with like stickers on her nipples.
I think
Those were writers. They were in a writer room.
Yeah.
In a writer room. So there was a lady there.
Eso es
like, that was-
pornografía.
That's who
was
you
Drew.
identify with, the lady with the stickers?
Yeah, because she was just there. And that's how I felt watching this movie. I felt like I was just there, you know? I I couldn't identify again. Like I like there wasn't even for me personally. And again, I know, you know, I'm the hater of this movie, but and I identify as it. But the thing about this movie was that at least when a movie, I'm not fully necessarily into the scope of it, there's a storyline or a character I can like hook myself into. And I couldn't with this movie. It was like so tough. Like I just got hooked with moments. I have moments that were great, but I didn't have like a particular character that I enjoyed or like or stood out, because at the end of the day, it was mainly focused on the life of this guy. That's the name of the movie, Mank. And his performance was all right. It was okay. I enjoyed it. It was good. But still, like his motives or his things weren't so compelling for me to like root for this guy, you know, or whatever. He's just like, he's getting himself into a pretty good position, and he's around a world ran by white people creating their own little society. Like it reminded me of politics in a way. Like they're just creating their own little Congress and their own little things, you know. And it's like, we chose you to entertain us and whatever. So you come up with the ideas or whatever. So that's how I felt. It was just like there wasn't a particular character. It was mainly like the ideas and the concepts and the things. Those are the things I enjoy the most, not a character.
How about you, JP?
We're still on character, right?
Yes.
It's funny because like the one character that I actually enjoyed other than Mank, because I feel like, you know, Gary Oldman, he's basically the star of the movie. It's his movie, so I feel like we could talk about other people in the ensemble. I think Naomi brought her up. Was Rita the typographer, the one who typed?
Yes, Lily
Her
Collins.
name was Rita?
I believe so. I don't know. Lily Collins.
Lily Collins, like
Emily and
it's funny because I wanted more from her story, because I was hoping that she was going to become a bigger character, but I feel like near the second act, it doesn't help that we do go to the flashbacks so many times. But after the whole fight about Mank's alcoholism, I feel like we almost forget her character, you know, because she has that big moment where she doesn't know if her husband's gone. And that moment was tough. I was like, shit. And then also the moment where she realizes, oh, like Mankiewicz did help bring people to the States during the Holocaust, which was hard to do because we did fucking tell people not to come. And we turned our back on a lot of folks during that time. So like that's empowering. It was a great moment for her to realize, like, oh, like, yes, he is a flawed man, but he's not a bad man. But then that was it. And then she only has one last moment where we find out, and it's a good thing. It's like her husband survived. He's okay. And it's such a beautiful, nice moment. It's cute. She embraces Mank. I didn't see anything like nefarious or like womanizing at all with her and Mank's relationship. But then that was it. I was like, oh,
there was romance.
I wanted more of her. Like, I'm gonna say like she was my favorite character, but because I actually wanted more out of her, or at least the narrative didn't give her enough moments with Mankiewicz. So yeah, Lily Collins for sure.
I had no clue that was Lily Collins while I was watching the movie, man. Like And it's also, she's also like pretty young, and she's hanging out with old Gary Oldman, married to him. But I mean, I like to know, was he really married to a young thing like that?
Welcome to Hollywood.
Aren't they
Well,
all?
also, I was reading that Gary Oldman was playing this guy, and this guy was not this old.
Well,
Like
he
Gary-
died at 55. So I mean, if you think
That's
about
true.
it, he
That's
died
true.
at 55.
That just kind of shows that whole Hollywood like ageism thing, where like a man can literally just exist at any age and be like asked to play anything, but as soon as a
Yeah.
woman over 30 decides to try to be an interesting love interest,
Freaking Hollywood.
how could a grown woman be attractive?
I didn't
And
realize
she's smart too.
I
Mank fought in World War One. Like, there's so much information, but because you have someone like Gary Oldman who looks older, I gotta connect my computer, it's gonna die. Speak amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
Okay, well, Michaela, how about you? Was there a character that you liked or identified with?
You know, I was very surprised with Amanda Seyfried. I think I'm pronouncing her last name.
I don't think any of us pronounced it right,
No,
actually.
no. I thought that she did an amazing performance considering like the amount of material they actually gave her character, especially considering how important that character was to what this story should have been. You know, like she literally represents one of the most iconic characters in like not just Hollywood history, but in like the history of cinema. Like Rosebud is one of the most important female characters ever written in this medium. And so having to try to find that duplicity and making her like a real person, I was very like surprised because that's something that I don't really like connect with her kind of acting. So it was a nice little surprise there to see that she got those chops. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised by now, but
I mean, yeah, she's very good, and I'm glad she showed up for the movie. It was a heck of a part, man.
Which,
You know, like,
which actress?
Amanda Seyfried or whatever her name is, but and she's generally very good. So I'm
Amanda
glad
Seals was in this movie.
What was that?
We should just stop.
What was that?
I missed that part.
What'd you say?
Some inside joke, I think, with JP and himself.
The seal.
No, I'm just
No.
like we're both just crapping on how to say her name, and it's like we should just
Seyfried, right? It's Seyfried.
I said Amanda Seals.
Seals. I got you. Yeah, totally different Amanda. How about you, Dino? Was there a character that you liked or identified with?
I did like her. I wanted to see more, especially when they were in that circus attire. I was like, oh my god, that is amazing.
That was
costume right
fantastic costumes.
I
I was
was
like,
like-
is that what rich people do?
I would.
there. And then they walk around, and there's like the.
I mean, if you think about it, Michael Jackson, Prince, you know, that's what they do.
Yeah. he
Man,
kinda-
I wanted to be at that costume party.
Yeah.
Dressed
So-
extraordinary.
I feel like I relate to the monkey organ player. That's who I relate to of characters. I thought the women were amazing in this movie. I thought they were actually, they had dimension to them, but I wish I would have seen more. You know, they all had a rich background that it was just like, show me more of that. Like, show me more of that stuff. Because yeah, Gary Oldman. So everything that we've said and stuff like that, and going to Gary Oldman and nominations, and I put myself in this same group that I'm about to criticize. I think this is a jerk fest of Hollywood cinema. This whole film is just like, especially liberal Hollywood, liberal at least right now, right? And like, look at us, how we're making, like, Citizen Kane is considered the most amazing film in the world, and now we bring this kind of little gem in, and it's about politics, and elections and fake media and look who's in power now. So I feel like it's just like this real giant like, we're so smart.
Because
We're
this
so
is the
smart, and we're doing this in black and white, so it's actually even more classy. Anyway, I'm in that group.
Too much no.
Huh?
Interesting.
I said you were reading too much Newsmax.
Like,
Oh, am I?
the biggest challenge to this film is like it's such a conceptual piece. Like
Yeah.
they choose the most uninteresting time to like see a film being made. You know, the writing, and how do you make writing interesting?
Oh, I'm glad you brought the writing back up, because I, as a with screenwriter film that I really enjoyed was Trumbull. You know, I thought that was way more interesting, following the life, and maybe it's also because of the narrative and it wasn't jumping back and forth. Because again, Citizen Kane is just this mammoth of just like, nothing will ever touch this. This is so amazing. So I think that in itself was so much pressure on trying to get this film, you know, right. And it's like, how much do we focus on that? How much do we bring out? How much does the audience gonna know? Because I was like, whoever played Orson Welles, I was like, give me more of Orson Welles. Give me more interaction between Orson Welles and Mank. Like, if there was that much issue at the end between them, I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that than.
That's the story. Not Mank trying to like struggle through.
Right, and
we need another like it's like trying to read a Bukowski novel.
and like at the end when he has the drunk and he throws up, and I'm like, okay, now there's some action. Now there's some heightening. Now there's some reaction going on because he throws up, and you know people want to get away from that, you know. So, but in between, I was just like, I understand they're bringing out Rosebud and they're bringing out all these little gems from Citizen Kane, but you're not interacting enough with people, you know. Like I could see this in a documentary. And again, and the acting was great, and it was great cinematography, but I'm just like, give me, it was right around the same time that the Screenwriters Guild started, and like the most that they brought was him making fun of the fact that it doesn't have an apostrophe or whatever, and that there might be a strike going on. Like, give me more of that. Like, if we're gonna take a peek into the 1930s Hollywood and Citizen Kane, give me more of that world and less of a drunk guy in bed who apparently...
I think the movie that you are asking for is RKO 281, which does all of those things. It does. Like it kind of goes into more detail with that stuff. Mankiewicz is played
that's
by,
a movie? Because I thought RKO was a finishing move from WWE wrestler Randy Orton.
Hey,
yeah, they get into that at the end of the movie. Mankiewicz is played by John Malkovich in RKO, and there's more of a relationship, or they explore more of the relationship with Orson Welles and him in that film.
With Liev Schreiber, because I saw that the cast list, and I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah, the other movie is dope. Not that many people have seen it though. I saw it one night on cable, like 10 years ago. My favorite character in this movie, and maybe he's a little bit understated, but it's the guy who played Louis B. Mayer.
The one that
And I never noticed him in anything else before, but I thought he was fantastic. In that monologue he gave where he's like introducing him to MGM and telling him how the ship runs at MGM.
Yes, that was so good.
It's so good. And it's like, oh man, like it was perfect for the movie. It was perfectly paced. It was a great monologue. It was well written. He acted it out perfectly. And to like set him up, and it also sets up the character, like who you're dealing with and what MGM was at that time. And he goes, MGM is like the place of 1,000 stars or whatever. He goes, no. He goes, the only star here is that lion. That's it. And it's like, whoa, like I can totally see someone at MGM saying something like that. Like they're not ego tripping over stars. They are the star. But then all of that to lead to him asking everybody to take pay cuts. And you have all these movie stars, and it almost feels like a setup because he's crying and he's probably faking it, and he's asked these, like, hey everybody, let's cut our pay in half. And the people who really matter, like the union guys, or maybe they're not union guys, like the camera workers and the light people, they're like, half? I can't live off a half. But then you got people like Shirley Temple standing up like, I'm with you, Louie. And I'm like, what? Like, that's just such a funny moment because clearly she's a prop, right? Like she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know the money situation and the unions and the strikes and the extras.
Wasn't she like 5, 7?
Right. She's just a child and she stands up like, I'm with you. And it's like, come on, man. Like this
and of course, a couple of people try to ask of like, are you gonna cut your paycheck? And he just like talks right through that shit.
Smooth sailing.
And yeah, I mean, it's all that. I would want to watch more of that. I would want to watch more of that. Also, looking at what all Mank wrote, like he did a lot of the Marx Brothers stuff, and they do bring up Marx Brothers, but very little. It's just like, since it's written Mank and not the making of Citizen Kane or the writing of Citizen Kane, I wanted to see more of Mank. I was way more interested in his like life than just him writing Citizen Kane, because I feel that,
it's more interesting to see how he got to the place to write the best thing he ever wrote than him writing the best thing he ever wrote.
Yeah. Agreed.
The Oedipus.
I love the whole Quixote thing. I thought that was super interesting.
I knew you were going to mention that.
And it made me think, I have a Don Quixote tramp stamp. But it made me think of Citizen Kane in a completely different point of view,
I had never considered that. I didn't know that was true, that it was Don Quixote. Like, but that's the mind of a brilliant writer, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, not only am I telling a real story, I'm putting my spin on it to make it more interesting, and I'm throwing Don Quixote on top of it. That's how you make the best script ever. It's like, I didn't know that. It's really brilliant if that's true.
Right what you know, right? And it's like, let me write about my life experiences or this douchebag, and let me throw in Don Quixote for good measure. And yeah.
So were there any other standout moments from the movie that you guys appreciated, or just things you absolutely like, this is atrocious, I don't like it?
The wardrobe.
Naomi's like, the wardrobe.
Her feather shit, like whatever wardrobe she was wearing, Amanda, that feather shit, I was like, damn, what is she wearing? What was she trying to portray? And then I found out it was a costume party.
Yeah, wardrobe killed it on this one for sure.
Her name was Trish Somerville, and she had to use certain colors to make it pop out on this monochromatic.
Oh wow!
Life, because when they recorded this, they actually recorded in black and white, not like a black and white filter as they were recording. They didn't like edit it and do black and white later. They actually recorded it, so she had to like be particular in color palettes. ¿Cómo dices?
Did they record film, actual celluloid, or was it just recorded in black and white?
You can tell.
It is, well, because they kept adding the little cigarette burns, right, in the film, which I was like, okay.
So you guys are saying it was film?
It's like, just stick, like, trust your gut with it. Like, it's so disappointing because you can tell that it is digital.
It is digital.
It is digital. They just like put a filter on top of that motherfucker.
Okay.
So when wardrobe had to be displayed, they had to use like certain color palettes throughout each scene. So Trish Somerville kept color palettes throughout each scene to make them colors pop. So when Amanda came out with that feather headdress, I was like, what the fuck is that? That's beautiful. So Trish, you did an amazing job.
Why don't you guys go ahead and jump in? Any
Steve, you
favorite
were
moments or
about to say
moments you could have totally did without?
I get the car accident. Like I'm still like I almost rewound and I'm like, why are they talking about this letter? And then never again brings up the letter, right? Or I don't know who that character was. Who was driving? I can't think of who it was. And Naomi had talked about the her assistant Lily, I think. Rita, and and like her beau or her boo or her husband or her loved one being a pilot, and it's like, and then his thing got blown up, right? And maybe he's disappeared. But I think it's great that we found out what happened, but I thought it was just like, just threw it in there. It was like after so-and-so drove off and then she opens a letter. I don't know. It just seemed like we spent so much time that now we have to try and close up some of these story arcs. It's like, oh, we forgot about her husband. Yeah, he was found. All right, well, we got this scene and we got to show that guy leaving. So I guess this is as good as any to just put this to tie it up. Like, I liked so much of the things, but I was just like, why are you doing it this way? Like, show me more of interest.
It seemed like the writers were too busy trying to show off that they knew their source material and that like they knew how to write 40s like wits.
Right, no, because that scene even felt like old Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like her like Mank, I gotta.
Yeah.
I think it was just the writers. They like painted themselves into a corner, and then had to finish the script, and was just like, no, like it's funny enough. Don't worry about it. Like they're just gonna be surprised that we use so many syllables everywhere.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like the time when he walks into and they're filming that Western or whatever, and he's talking to her up there, and it's almost like they didn't know, like, are we writing the whole film, like them being on a set, or did people actually talk like this when they weren't being, on set and on film? And I was trying to figure that out. And I think his alcoholism could have been done more. I don't know. Maybe
alcoholism could have been turned up a notch. Let me ask you this, because this is I don't know the answer to this. What were in the little bottles? Was that medicine? Was that absinthe?
I searched it up. It's a thing to help you sleep if people have insomnia. So it's some sort of sedative.
So he was getting high on it.
Huh?
Oh, Crystal.
He was getting high on that stuff.
Well, no, I think he thought it was alcohol, and that's why he drank a full bottle or like two early on, and they were worried that he killed himself because that's like a super strong sedative.
Nah, he didn't think it was alcohol. He was trying to get messed up.
Well, maybe he was trying to get messed up, but you shouldn't get messed up with that.
He ended up empty now.
I got 60 days in this motherfucking cabin. Might as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's Seconal, which is it's a sedative. Give him the sedative. Sedative. Anyone? Young Frankenstein. All right. It can treat trouble falling asleep. It can also make patients sleepy before surgery or medical procedures. It's a controlled substance, can cause paranoia or suicidal ideation, and impair memory, judgment, and coordination. Combining with other substances, particular alcohol, can slow breathing and possibly lead to death.
Made sure you include the judgment.
So I think that's why also he was having trouble probably writing, because if he was taking too much of that, it would wipe him out, and he couldn't, So maybe back in the day they used that to treat alcoholism. But again, none of that. How would we know if we don't go and do our own side research?
Well, that's the thing, man. That's why we watch movies. We also watch movies to learn, right?
Yeah, but anyway, I don't know.
Well, no, seriously though, like we do. We watch movies to learn. Like, There's one thing about like when you write a movie like this, you have to give the audience the benefit of the doubt that either they know the information or they're willing to like figure it out or do the research, because if you explain every little detail that you think the audience might not know, you'll be there for 7 hours.
Right.
True.
Anybody else?
I think that they chose a very interesting topic to try to make a film about, and I think they just focused on the wrong parts of the life to make a good film. But you know, they also like really touched on like something that's so important that we take for granted in film, that our voices really do affect public opinion. You know, that was like such a huge major theme that I don't think probably has gotten enough credit that they talk about, you know, because like that was one of the most important things about the Nazi Party during the time was like Goebbels did such a great job that it's scary. Like one of the best films ever made was Nazi propaganda. Like if you ever have tried to watch it, it's gorgeous. Like, you know, and unfortunately it's good filmmaking. You know, like you have to recognize it, and that's what made it so dangerous. And that's something that we have to like you said, people learn from movies. So how much are we willing to take advantage of that? How much are we willing to tell people this is true? This is what happened. This is how they felt.
Like on the Titanic, it was a German officer that wanted to put the women and children first, not the English captain. How dare they?
But it's just very interesting that you say that we watch films to learn, and with that we have a certain responsibility. And how do we maintain that responsibility? And how do we safeguard that? Can we safeguard that? You know, like would we rather sell, or would we rather make something powerful and tell the truth?
I think you guys are going to be upset. Those are all very valid points. I think you guys are going to be really upset when you find out this movie probably gets an Oscar nomination.
I
only wins screenwriting.
The thing is, when you're a person like me, you don't really care about the Oscars, and you don't see them as high as they allude them to be. To me, they're just little tokens to make people party more and basically
It's a
be on
trophy
that
show.
loop.
That's
It's a trophy
why
show.
a party.
It's just an
Everybody
excuse.
loves a party.
It's an excuse for you. Look, you got to learn from Latinx people, specifically Mexicans. They make a party out of everything, bro. You can have great. You came home with good grades. We throw a party because we're trying to get drunk.
Exactly.
Bro, at my ex house, there were some Mexicans throwing parties every other day. Every other day, bro. And it's the same. The Oscars is the same thing, just with trophies.
They had an excuse for a party. I'm you know what? I'm with that life, man. Find
And
a
of
reason
course
to party.
they're gonna give to this. Who runs those things? Old boomer guys that run Paramount Studios and whatever other studios. You know?
I don't know, but it's changing. Also, is this film going to be considered? When are they considering the?
The inclusive stuff, right?
Yeah, people of color in your crew and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. Then this movie can't get nominated because I bet you there's nobody that non-white working.
There was one black actor.
They'll say the janitors. They'll say the janitors.
Oh, when
were
are
black.
we making the Latin Oscars?
There was one black guy that got filmed in the he was.
Hey, they got Latin Grammys. We can do Latin Oscars.
And he was driving. So the only black guy was driving, and he was asked about who he was going to vote.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Wait till we have the Oye Awards. Those are going to be more prestigious.
The Oye Awards.
Awesome.
Well, let's jump into final thoughts then. Let's wrap this bad boy up with the bow and see what we come up with.
Final thoughts. I guess I'll join.
Yeah, go for it.
This movie is not my cup of tea due to the storyline. Other than that, I will study from it. If I ever want to capture the essence of the 1930s, I will go back to this film and see what's up. Other than that, I don't recommend this film if you're like Latin and don't want to see rich white people just drunk off their asses. That's just me, but those are my final thoughts.
Right on.
Oh my gosh.
Boom! I'll jump.
Let's get the fucking movie.
I hated this movie. This movie sucks. This movie, I won't watch it again. But it is a good movie to watch if you like film noir stuff. It's still surprising to me that this movie they spent between 20 to 30 million, which I'm sure a lot of that went to people's pockets straight and they didn't use it.
Wardrobe.
But wardrobe too, the wardrobe. But the producers, the producers in this film are very accurate. Them old guys just sitting down, collecting money, and just watching things happen without doing that much. That's a producer's life. That's what I want to. That's why I want to get to.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Get that rich and white. But the thing I'm not gonna do is get drunk and be on that cycle of looking for girls and all that stuff and that loop that rappers and producers and all those people get into, because that leads to death. And if we learn anything about this movie, is that you don't want to die drunk and alone. Because it sucks.
Pretty spot on. You don't.
There you go.
You good? You done?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Oh,
I'm
before
good.
I go, who was the guy with Parkinson?
It was
That was the director.
The cinematographer.
Right, that did the propaganda film, right?
Yeah, he was the one that made the propaganda films, yeah.
And earlier on, what else did he? Was he the one that said, "Oh, don't let the Marx brother hang out in my office because they were cooking hot dogs"?
Yo,
Is that guy?
No, it was a different guy.
You see, two white people in black and white films all look alike to me.
But that guy that you mentioned does die in the movie.
He does die. How funny is it though that the Marx brothers were cooking hot dogs while that dude wasn't in his office
at the fireplace? Wait,
like they did it.
Oh, was that what that funeral? Was that funeral not for the guy that shot himself?
It was a joke. It was a funny that they did. It was supposed to be like, oh, you thought it was him, but it wasn't. It was the other asshole.
Right? Okay, that's what I thought it wasn't the same guy, but I thought it was great that there's like swing by the office, and he was like, yeah, you said that last time. So I thought that was great, and I would have watched that. So final thoughts. I would have gone and watched Citizen Kane before watching this. In hindsight. I can't imagine. Well, Steve hasn't watched Citizen Kane, right?
Yeah.
Right. I just can't imagine people like that haven't seen Citizen Kane or know nothing of them actually liking this film.
Yeah, agreed.
I just like, you can like the sound, you can like the cinematography, but I tell you what, they're foreign films that I can watch without subtitles and understand more than trying to follow this. Tenet made more sense to me than this film, and I know what's going on in this film. So I was very disappointed, and yeah, and I struggled so much with this film. I wanted to, I did not. I'm not saying it's a bad film. I just didn't enjoy it.
Like the election night of 1934.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Which even that I'm like, wait, who is who? Like the names, I couldn't even figure out who we were rooting for. Or when he did the bet, the double or nothing, I couldn't understand what the double or nothing bet was because I couldn't figure out who the names were of the people that I knew was that rich dude. I
about the people who were running for office.
Yeah.
It was Sinclair and I forget the other guy.
Franklin's the one you're not supposed to like.
Yeah. And how about you, JP or Michaela? You guys want to jump on there?
It's funny because like you guys brought up that RKO movie, and to be honest, the way that you guys described it, that's what that's what I thought this movie was gonna be about. So like this movie did. This movie, it is literally probably gonna be the most old Hollywood movie that you'll see in this century. You know, like even the artists, I don't think did like old Hollywood like this movie fucking did.
Oh, JP, don't worry, they'll make another one in the next 10 years. Don't worry.
But like the thing, like we all had the same issue. The most of us, like, we didn't really know what was going on narratively, and there was not enough stuff to engage us in story-wise because there wasn't a lot of things that seemed to be at stake. That's why, like, for me, the ending scene with him and Orson seemed completely out of left field, and the movie ended it in a way that was kind of the point. Like, oh, well, Mank wanted his accreditation. Mank really wanted to be, like, recognized. Like, well, I didn't get that at all in the film. So it feels almost mute. So the movie is beautiful visually. Everyone's great. Sound is magnificent. Visuals, I felt like there was a lot of stuff visually that could have been better, but you know what? It's whatever. It's not a deal breaker at all. Even the animals were, you could tell, like, that was the one special effect that did bug me. Like, you could tell that those animals were not real, and they were in the dark for a reason.
Only the giraffes jumped up as being super fake.
Yeah,
the other animals, I was like,
they made a mistake. They lit the giraffes. The monkeys and the elephants, they were in the dark. But they decided, no, we had to put the light on the giraffes, and you could tell that it was fake. But
it's weird because this is directed by David Fincher, who is great. But yeah, and again, directing wise, it's great. But story, it was just a lot was missing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I just wish it was just a better and more engaging story. So,
and this was filmed pre-COVID. Like, I understand if you were filming this now and it's like, all right, we gotta rewrite a lot of things with Gary Oldman just in a bed. Like, we're doing Gary Oldman in a bed with two other people. That's going to be the whole film because of COVID. I understand that, but this was filmed before COVID, so really could have had more outdoor scenes.
For sure. Well, unless you're really into old Hollywood and even just knowing a bit more of the history of Citizen Kane or of anything of that, sure, you could watch it. You'll probably enjoy it. But for an average person, there's not much to engage or root for. It's just a movie. I feel bad saying that. So yeah, I can't recommend it. Like, I didn't hate it, but it was definitely a movie.
It's not gonna be on Netflix top 10.
I think it is probably.
I mean, if they pay it, like, that's the only way this movie is gonna win anything is how much they're willing to spend to get people to watch it,
to market it. Yeah.
No, like, it's a very super niche time. It's for a very specific fan base, for people who are, like, in love with, like, this specific medium, and then it doesn't even focus on the important parts of that story. I think that they were just trying to show off how great of a biopic they could create, and I think they just chose the wrong parts of this man's life. You know?
Right. I think a lot of people watch Fox News and CNN. I think those people will tune in, you know.
With Upton Sinclair being the... Anyways.
Even the poster seems way more exciting than the movie did.
Right? No, like, it's
Let's see that font. What kind of font did they use? I'm just kidding.
Like,
yeah, that poster is like ensemble heavy.
Yeah, and very caricature. Yeah.
Like, this film is an ass.
So I will say this: I actually agree with all your takes, and I can see how they're all extremely valid. This movie strikes me. No, not a but. This movie strikes me. I didn't think about it until you guys all put your say on it. But this movie strikes me as a companion piece at best to Citizen Kane, to the life of Orson Welles, to the life of Mankiewicz, to RKO 281 for sure. Honestly, I couldn't recommend this movie to anyone unless they were, like, you know, history buffs or like Hollywood history buffs, or had they already seen RKO 281, because a lot of the stuff that you guys mentioned, like, oh yeah, it doesn't do that, it's all in the other movie. And the other movie's a lot more fast paced. But the one thing that you do wonder about in RKO, and I'm sure other people will agree with this, you know, after you see it or other people have seen it, is that right? Exactly. Thank you, Steve. The other thing that you'll understand about RKO is that they don't spend enough time with Mankiewicz in the movie. And, you know, what's his face does a really great job. What's his face? What's the guy's name? The other
Talented
actor,
Mr. Ripley.
Malkovich.
Yeah.
John Malkovich does a great job playing him, but we don't really get enough understanding of who he is. You just feel like he's been cheated. Because you're like, this guy, this young Orson Welles, this young 23-year-old came to Hollywood and stole this man's script. After toiling for 20, 30 years in Hollywood, this young upstart from the Mercury Theater comes in and steals this man's livelihood.
And you didn't get that from this movie until the very end. It's like, oh, wait, there was beef between them?
But that's all we know going into the movie. Like, all we know is that Orson Welles steals his script. We don't know how it happens or what the circumstances around it are. So there's a lot of stuff I think you have to know before going into this movie to enjoy it at all. I think if you're going in blind, you can't recommend this movie to anyone, right?
So I guess this is my question. Is this movie about Mank the writer? Is that about the people that Citizen Kane was based on? Is that about 1930s cinema? Is it about the 1934 election? Is that like, which one are we going for that this movie is?
All of the above.
Or was this a tax write-off and they just put money in their pockets?
A Netflix tax write-off. I think all the stuff you named was like subplot in building the universe so that we know what was going on around that time. The movie is about Mankiewicz. Like, he's a title character. But I think what the movie does, from everything I've ever read about, because I've seen so many documentaries about Citizen Kane because it's my favorite movie for years.
Yeah, we talk about it.
I think you say I talk about it a lot.
We talk about it monthly. We have you've been wanting to do a Citizen Kane podcast.
A whole podcast. Nothing but Citizen Kane.
It's only week. Citizen Kane every week. Citizen Kane.
What the thing that I found fascinating about this movie is that there was new information about all the characters involved. I didn't know that William Randolph Hearst wasn't that bad. It seems, and that Marion Davis actually loved him. Because everything you read about it is that she's this young actor who's like this billionaire comes to her and she of course I'm going to marry the billionaire. But then she breaks down like her mom is kind of like, hey, you have to marry this guy. Kick a little higher, honey. And
but then Mank keeps saying it's not about her. So it's like, at what point is that David Fincher and company are they rewriting it? Or was it more like Citizen Kane? Was Monk's original story more closer to reality? Like, we just don't know.
You have to, in that story, the reason they keep saying that it's not about her, because in Citizen Kane, it is so much about her, and they drag her through the dirt in that movie.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who that woman is in real life, you'd be like, what a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, but this one, she's adorable. Like, you love her, and you're rooting for her to win. Even though she's like, at this point, a spoiled little rich girl, but she has a mind and she has compassion and she really does love, Hearst. And they never depict that in any book or documentary or anything that she actually cared for him. But
it kind of sense romance there. There was romance with Amanda and the dude, right?
Yeah, like they were totally into one another. Like they adored each other, and they've never like shown that before in any story. But again, it all goes back to, if you don't know any of this source material, and if you're not like really, this is just like a little key into the rest of the stuff. And it's not a very interesting key if you don't know what doors it unlocks. That was pretty good, Jason. I'm going to end it on that note. Steve, tell us what we got next week.
Next week, guess whose turn is it? Guess whose turn is it? Nobody
whose
can
turn
guess.
is it?
Is it yours, Steve?
Is it Steven's turn?
Is somebody? No, actually, I'm waiting. I'm gonna save mine. Dino, ding, ding, ding. You hit it. It's actually Michaela's turn. So
all right,
Michaela, what is next week's movie?
I'm hoping that we can it's by the guy who directed Amelie. It's like a weird horror movie. It's called Delicatessen. I don't know if I can find it streaming though. That's the problem. But I think that would be very interesting.
I find everything. So just give me the name and we find it.
Delicatessen.
I've seen the box cover. I've always wanted to watch it. This should be great.
I did not know that the dude who made Amelie, a cute ass French movie, made a horror flick.
I cannot even pronounce the name, so I don't have no clue about this movie.
Amelie.
It's on.
It's in my top 5.
It's in Prime Video.
Is it?
Yeah.
Amazon Prime, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
What's the name of it again? One more time.
Delicatessen.
Delicatessen. There you go. Delicatessen next week for Michaela, JP, Don Dino, Naomi, Jason Echols, and me, Steve. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye now.
Hello there, I am Steve Des from Oya Demo Network. Don't forget to subscribe, and also don't forget, you can literally click there or click there, and you watch more videos. Isn't that great?